Have Prince Harry and Meghan Markle been evicted from their Frogmore Cottage home? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about this apparently breaking story that King Charles has officially kicked Harry and Meghan out of Frogmore Cottage, and he's thinking of putting Prince Andrew there instead. I feel like this story comes a bit out of left field, but I feel like also there's a lot of precedence for this, and it's time a bit for a change, and this is what we're seeing. I think I suggested in a video, or at least I thought about it, that once Charles became king, there would be a lot of changing in how the royal houses look, and there'll be a lot of shuffling. And I think I have an idea of who might go into Royal Lodge, which is Andrew's home, and perhaps Adelaide Cottage, where Catherine and William are currently living. Well, maybe that's where Harry and Meghan will be stuck instead, if they get a place at all. And Meghan Markle makes a very underwhelming return to the media spotlight, slightly emphasizing that yes, oh yes, she still has no plan. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary about the latest news, a little bit of gossip as well. I will also be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing about history too. I am currently a PhD student and a very avid royal watcher for over 10 years. So I'd like to provide my insights and analysis into all things royal. So if that's something of interest to you, feel free to subscribe in the link down below. I'm filming this and I have another video that I'm going to put ahead of time, but by this video, hopefully, fingers crossed, I should be at 100,000 subscribers. But if I'm not, you need to subscribe because this channel is awesome and it's just onwards and upwards. I will be on the ground in London next month, or in March, to cover the Commonwealth Day service, and I will also be there at the coronation. I cannot wait. And the Trooping the Color this year, and Sweden has its Golden Jubilee, and we have a couple of 50th birthdays this year. Just so much going on in the royal space, so I would love to have you guys subscribe. We'll be doing, I focus a lot on Harry and Meghan, but there will be more than Harry and Meghan in the future, guys. It is coming. I'm so stoked. And just 3 other things here real quick. I do have a fashion channel, Royal Fashion News, which is on a bit of a hiatus, but should be back up soon. I also have a trip to London. I only have 1 spot left, so if you're interested to coming to London and the Cotswolds with me, I'll put a link down below. In addition, I also have a weekly newsletter, Royal Wire, so if you're interested in that, feel free to sign up. But like I said, let's get back to this. Harry and Meghan, they may be out on the streets, guys. They may be officially out on the streets in the UK. And if this story is true, now this is just from, I think it either came from the Sun or the Daily Mail, it's hard to tell. And this story hasn't been confirmed by the Telegraph or the Times. I feel like those 2 publications in particular, if I see something on them, I'm like, oh, okay, this is probably true. But that doesn't mean that articles in the Sun and the Daily Mail are not true, but I just usually like for additional corroboration for stories. But this definitely is not totally a surprise, and apparently it happened shortly after Spare was released. Now, if the royal family did this, it would look like a direct retaliation for Spare, which I feel like they've always been trying to avoid direct retaliations against Harry and Meghan. But I feel like this was coming as well. Harry and Meghan have made it very abundantly clear, although Harry not so much. I feel like Harry wants a way back, and Meghan does, and she doesn't. She wants a way back into the royal spotlight, but not into the royal family. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to have a home that they don't live in that was just renovated. It makes no sense for them to have a home like that. They don't live in the UK. They hardly spend any time there. They want massive apologies, groveling apologies from everyone just to grace them with their presence. And I feel like the royal family is like, no, we're not really all that into that. You can just stay where you are over there. But at the same time, we also knew that there would be some shuffling involved. As Charles becomes king, I knew there would probably be a bit, as they're looking at the households, where do people go? Where do people fit? And one of those people is Prince Andrew. And there's been a lot of rumblings the last couple of weeks that Andrew will be kicked out of Royal Lodge. So this is a massive home on the Windsor property, and he has been living there for many years, but it costs a lot to upkeep the home. Because here's the thing, the bigger the home is, even though it's grander, which is very nice, it's also a lot more of an upkeep. It's a lot of money. My parents actually at one point had quite a large home. They got it during the recession, so they got a really great deal on it. And the upkeep on a home like that is insane. I can't imagine what it'd be like for Royal Lodge. And believe it or not, Catherine and William live actually in one of the smaller properties on the Windsor estate, and that's Adelaide Cottage. And so when the Queen died, I was like, oh my goodness, like William and Catherine just moved into Adelaide Cottage. Where are they going to stay there? And the talk is so far that they are going to stay at Adelaide Cottage. But then the question became, what about Andrew and what about Harry and Meghan? Because Andrew is in his empty nesting stage, and Andrew wants Royal Lodge because of the prestige it gives him. Fergie also lives there. I'm sure his kids visit a lot, and I understand his desire to keep a home at that level, but it was more, I feel like, an ego drive. As you get older, generally you downsize your property, and Charles is like, yeah, Andrew, over here, yes. We cannot pay for your exorbitant lifestyle really anymore because you're not a working royal. You drag down the institution. So it makes sense for you to downgrade and go to a smaller home. And who could be interesting to put in there is perhaps Catherine and William. Catherine and William could live in Royal Lodge. That way they're a little bit separate from the rest of everything going on in Windsor, yet they also have quite a prominent abode, which is what they need in their status. Homes within the royal sphere are all about statuses. Your level within the line of succession designates generally where you live. And so I feel like for Catherine and William, it makes sense that Royal Lodge perhaps could be their future home. I'm sure they like it at Adelaide Cottage, but it actually has just enough rooms for Catherine and William and their 3 children. They can't even have their nanny sleeping over on the property, although I'm sure she sleeps somewhere around Windsor. And they also have, I'm sure, other staff members who come and help, family and those sorts of things. And they don't have, I'm sure, a large team at home, but I'm sure it's definitely, Adelaide Cottage is definitely quite small. So that would be a great home perhaps for Andrew as well. But I can see the advantage of putting Andrew in Frogmore Cottage. But I'm also wondering, well, hey, didn't Harry and Meghan supposedly pay $2.4 million back to the taxpayers for renovating their home? That to kick them out after a year just seems a little odd. However, here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if this confirms that it was always Charles who paid that money. Never Harry and Meghan. It was Charles who paid that money. And if Charles paid that money back to the taxpayers to settle Harry and Meghan's debts, what that tells me is that Charles can do whatever the heck he wants with Frogmore Cottage. Bring it on. Bring it on. It is his. It's not Harry and Meghan's. And that would give him leverage to evict them. If they didn't really pay for it, then he needs to let them go. And Harry and Meghan, again, they've made it very clear they want to raise their kids in California. They want to live in California, yada, yada, yada. So it makes a lot of sense for them to be booted from Frogmore Cottage. If you're going to stay in California, well, you get to stay in California. That's the deal. Now, Harry has also been very inconsistent in the fact that he wants to stay in California. He wants to do his job in California, yet he misses his royal life. He misses his royal family, even though he's trashed his royal family. So the schizophrenic nature of Harry and Meghan very much comes to the forefront here. But here's what they could also be doing, is that if Andrew, let's say, moves to Frogmore Cottage, maybe they leave the Royal Lodge empty for now. Maybe they're waiting for somebody else. Maybe it's George or Charlotte or something. Or perhaps it needs a lot of renovation because unfortunately, again, these homes are a lot to upkeep. Perhaps it's time for it to undergo something like that. So maybe Catherine and William move to Windsor Castle instead. That's always been suggested as well. And then Harry and Meghan, they can get access to Frogmore Cottage. Again, all this house shuffling is rather fascinating. So it all depends on where Charles wants people and where people want to be. Obviously, Catherine and William get first pick. Beyond that, it could be hit and miss. Now, I would say again, Royal Lodge makes sense for Catherine and William. Looking at it from a aerial photograph, it's quite a large home and it makes sense for a growing family. The kids will soon be teenagers. Perhaps the rooms at Adelaide Cottage are small. And I think Adelaide Cottage always meant to be somewhat of a temporary move. I don't think they knew how temporary it would be. I don't see Catherine and William moving to Royal Lodge immediately, again, if this all plays out. but it could be a place where they're able to grow a bit more because they'll have more kids and opportunities. But looking at the aerial photograph, it looks like there's a church right next to it. And so I wonder if for security and privacy reasons, that may not make sense. Again, that might be a church where only people who are within the Windsor state or something have access to it. So that could be the case as well. But it is an interesting question because although the family could live in Windsor, I'd be curious how easy it would be for the kids, for example, to go out and play and not have people see them. That's what I think would be the disadvantage of Windsor, is that you do have people around there all the time, and it is a higher probability that somebody would be able to watch your kids. So I don't totally see Catherine and William at this point moving to Windsor. But again, I could be wrong. This is all up in the air. But I feel like this is a fascinating piece to come out. Now, again, I'm surprised if it is happening that it seems to be in reaction to Spare, although it could be something too, where it's the beginning of the year, we're evaluating things. Hey, Harry and Meghan, we paid for the $2.4 million that you could not to get you guys settled with the taxpayer. So at this point, we know you're not coming back very much. We're just going to take this back because unfortunately, you guys don't own it. You're renters. And so it's something where the Crown could take it back. And again, we have all this shuffling, and it makes sense for Andrew, who is downsizing, or who should, given his age, to go into a smaller place. Again, I feel like his ego, this is another bruise to his ego. And I've always thought as well, I haven't done a whole video on this because we have been talking about Andrew for a while. At least I'm seeing him in the news a lot, being worried about how much money he's going to be given. Charles has to be very careful too, not to completely and totally offend his brother, because what if his brother decides to go the Prince Harry route? Now, at the same time, I think Andrew has a better route back to the royal family if he maintains his silence. He could potentially very remotely be a working royal again. Again, he may challenge the case that he settled against Virginia. And honestly, I think he way overpaid her for the allegations that she made. Not that they're not serious or anything like that, but it happened so long ago, it would be difficult to prove definitively. It is technically a he said, she said, unless somebody has a smoking gun, like pictures or videos or something, or audio. Unless they have that, it is really a he said, she said. Those things can go to court and they can do well. But again, you're talking about 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago. So recollections may vary when it comes to those things. So there are a bit more challenging to do. But again, once again, very, very interesting to see. And we also had this week the reappearance of Meghan. Yeah, she told us she was working on, well, she didn't tell us, but somebody in the media told us that she was working on something big and she was going to come back and it was going to be, she had this grand strategy. And what does she do? She does a really lame Instagram video with the woman who she invested in her coffee thing. So let's take a watch at this, which is very dumb in my opinion.
This is how a small business went from this to this. My name's Hannah, co-founder and CEO of a self-care brand called Clever. We make these indulgent, instant superfood lattes that help with energy, stress, and sleep. My co-founder and I started Clever in 2016. We had this hand-built, scrappy coffee bar where we'd make these lattes inspired by holistic ingredients from around the world. People fell in love with the drinks and really wanted to make them at home. So we combined all the ingredients together and created Clever. During the week, we were fulfilling orders from our garage, blending up Clever at a shared commercial kitchen, and then on the weekends, we'd pop up with our bar because we had zero marketing budget. 3 years ago, everything changed. None other than Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, started drinking our lattes. Not only did she love the product, she was extremely passionate about supporting female founders, our sustainable sourcing, and our food justice give back. Meghan ended up becoming our first investor, advisor, and biggest Clever advocate. She even sent our turmeric latte to France. And a few days later, I opened my phone to see Oprah herself making our golden super latte in her own kitchen. No big deal. We lost it. Our small but mighty team was 100% not ready for this and ended up selling out for 2 months. We then grew our team, launched amazing new products, and started to dip our toe into retail. We've now served over 6 million lattes, and we owe so much of that to the power of women uplifting women, especially in business where only 2% of venture funding goes to female-founded brands. We have big plans for the future and are committed to building Clever for you. Let us know what you want to see from us this year. We got you.
So it's a rather interesting video because in a way, Meghan features very little and yet so much, because it's like 3 years ago, everything changed. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, started to drink our lattes. Oh. And you just feel the cringe factor, because it's like, oh, Meghan changed everything. She was the first investor. She's the best ever. She believes in women. She supports women's initiatives and businesses and all these sorts of things. And so it very much feels like not really an ad for Clever, but an ad for Meghan Markle. And it's not necessarily a terrible thing to do, yet at the same time, it's like, okay, you invested. You don't need to go in there and go and brag about it and have them tell the world how great you are because you gave a little bit of money to this business, and then you sent it to Oprah Winfrey. So of course, it did pretty well after that. It just comes across to me as very, once again, influencery. Meghan is an influencer, full stop. That's her level. She is not a deep thinker. She is not an intellectual. She cannot create anything. No, she just wants to try to sell you things so you can buy them, so it gives a kickback to her. And I just find that just very crass as a reel, very demeaning, very low. But Meghan doesn't, because Meghan, and as I was reading through Valentine Lowe's book and chatting with him and other things, it's just abundantly clear. Meghan Markle cares about one thing in the entire world: money. She wants as much money as humanly possible. And to be as famous as humanly possible, that's helpful. But her most important thing, her driving desire, is to make as much money off of people as she can. And it's been interesting too, because Tom Bauer has mentioned, which I always saw too, that Meghan really thought that once she married Harry, she hit the jackpot. It's like, well, honey, if you had done a little bit of research, because you know you are a smart woman, you would have known that there's not a lot of cash within royal families or titled families. Most of their money resides within the titles that they have, the land that they have. There's very little like cash equity within these. There's a couple exceptions. Even in the UK, most of the dukedoms, those ducal families, they have a lot of land, and their land is, and their money is wrapped up in the land and the titles and the artwork and stuff that they hold, but very little actual liquid cash. And then the one exception probably would be the Duke of Westminster. He does have a lot of money, but it's all tied up in trusts too. It's very carefully regulated and everything, so he's not hit with inheritance taxes all the time. And then you get the Dutch have access to more cash. I think the Norwegians do as well. Swedish is a little bit more restrictive because they do get their money from the government. Norway has gas production. The Netherlands also has a big stake in Dutch royal gas. So, or Shell Dutch royal gas, Shell Dutch royal something to that effect. So anyways, so not all royal families have a ton of cash. And so if Meghan had done a modicum of research, why wouldn't she go after the Duke of Westminster, who is young? Well, he's younger than Harry. I think he might have turned 30. I'm not sure, to be honest. His name is Hugh. And so he makes the most sense if you're going after money. If you're going after money, you don't go after titled people. You generally don't. I mean, again, there's some exceptions. Monaco, if Meghan really wanted money, try to steal Charlene away from Prince Albert or something. I don't know. But you get what I'm saying, is that there is a desire within Meghan to make as much cash as humanly possible. And she thought she could do and spend whatever she wanted in the UK. And they're like, we don't have the budget for that. We cannot buy you 12 Hermes blankets so you can have it on every couch and sofa and seating area in the house. We can't do that. It's just a waste of money. And you have to understand too, titled people, even if they're especially old money, they're very threadbare. They wear clothes out. They're very scrupulous. They're very cautious with their money oftentimes. It's usually the new money people who spend like a drunk sailor on leave, which is exactly how Meghan spent the money. She spent it like a person with new money. She wanted the flash, she wanted the extravagance, all these sorts of things, which Harry could never have given her. And because of that, I feel like that causes immense tension, because Meghan wants to make as much money as she can, because she is getting older too. And so to a certain extent, she appeals less to younger people, and younger people tend to generally be into influencers. And so it'll just be interesting to see how this all plays out with Meghan, because once again, I feel like she's way too into money. She wants to make as much money as possible. She doesn't want to serve anyone. She wants all of us to serve her by padding her bank account. And I'm sure if it's true that they've gotten kicked out of Frogmore Cottage, I'm sure that hurts them somewhat to an extent because they don't have that UK base that they kind of need to make their stuff work. They don't have it. And I feel like that's going to really grind Meghan after a while because they've lost their status of living on a titled estate. And perhaps maybe when they come, they can just rent in London like everybody else, because that is what they did. I believe when they came back from Canada, they just did a suite or something in London. It's like the royal family's like, well, just do that. That's fine. Maybe they'll get a little place at St. James's Palace or something, but I don't think they'll be catered to as much because the royal family cannot afford to cater to Harry and Meghan. They need to make decisions regarding where people live that makes sense given the makeup of the royal family they have now. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this talk that perhaps Harry and Meghan are getting kicked out on their keisters. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.